Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. CARICOM and OECS take COP15 seriously enough to hold preparatory workshop. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 15th September 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. The CARICOM Secretariat and the OECS Commission have partnered to organize a preparatory workshop for regional delegates attending the Convention on Biological Diversity 15th Conference of the Parties, COP15. COP15 takes place in Montreal, Canada. It will bring governments from around the world together to set new goals to guide global actions through 2040 to protect and restore nature. Don Nicholas of the DBS News World reports.
The program on capacity building related to multilateral environmental agreements in the African, Caribbean, and Pacific countries is being implemented on behalf of all member states by a project under the Human and Social Development Directorate of the CARICOM Secretariat. Phase 1 and 2 of the program mainstreamed environmental issues into national development plans. Officials are moving to the next level by hosting a CARICOM Secretariat and OECS workshop here to prepare for the Convention on Biological Diversity Conference of Parties taking place in Canada in December. There, a global biodiversity framework will be developed for the next 10 years, hence the reason for this training session aimed at adopting a Caribbean position which is critical to ensuring that the region's needs relating to biodiversity are addressed regionally and internationally.
There are key issues for us as a region that need to be addressed, particularly when we look at our coastal regions. This is very critical. There are areas of convergence when we look at issues as digital information sequences, which is occurring. We have a lot of in terms of looking at our species and our endemic species, and also we have issues of alien invasive species. These are key areas that the Caribbean region want to ensure that as a region it is highlighted as part of those areas that are protected under the convention.
The two-day conference will establish a common position through a declaration by CARICOM ministers responsible for sustainable development. It also brings together seasoned negotiators with new ones to facilitate an interchange of ideas on the way forward. For small island developing states, biodiversity is critical in keeping with the OECS mantra of a better quality of life for its people.
Just very simply, if you look at when you speak about things like invasive species, and just so that the common person can understand it, we know we have the issue of the lionfish. Okay, that is an invasive species, and how do we commonly address it? Because in the marine space, the fish does not regard legal boundaries, right? So some of these things must be dealt with collectively so that we can have a sustained solution.
For Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Sustainable Development, Anita Mortute, speaking unanimously at the COP meeting in December cannot be overemphasized.
We are here for the two-day meeting in order to ensure that when we get to COP in December, that we speak as a unified force, that we speak in one voice. And this is why that we have brought all the countries from the OECS and the CARICOM here to engage in some discussion and to ensure that when we get to the point of decision making, that we are all speaking or singing from the same songbook. We realize that biodiversity is it impacts on our life and livelihoods, and as a result of that, we see it as something that is very, very critical and important for St. Lucia.
The two-day conference is taking place at the Bay Gardens Hotel. For the DBS News World, I am Don Nicholas.
In other news, during the ceremonial opening of the third session of the 12th Republican Parliament, Trinidad and Tobago's President Paula May Weeks encouraged parliamentarians to work together for the common good of citizens. She said the relationship between parliamentarians and John Public have been squandered and withered away. TTT's Kimberly D'Souza tells us more.
If unnecessary contention, the exchange of wild accusations and insults, and abrupt withdrawals are the order of the day, how and when will the people's business be conducted?
President Paula May Weeks reminded parliamentarians that constituents are the ones who suffer if they refuse to work together for the common good. During the ceremonial opening of the third session of the 12th Republican Parliament, she said the primary purpose of the legislature is to make laws for peace, order, and good governance of Trinidad and Tobago.
You made solemn and significant promises to the nation, promises that you are duty-bound to keep and hold in high regard. No dispute or grievance should ever take precedence over your oath and role as parliamentarians and servants of the Republic.
President Weeks said old and new challenges must be tackled head-on with wisdom, industry, and cooperation. She added that the new session of Parliament presented opportunities for a new beginning.
It is a golden opportunity to offer to our nation, perhaps as an independence gift, fresh perspectives, attitudes, and behaviors as you endeavor to fulfill the oaths you took upon assuming your duties as parliamentarians.
President Weeks reminded all gathered in the chamber that the Parliament is a venue for patriotism which transcends cultural, racial, and political bounds. Kimberly D'Souza, TTT News.
Now, during the ceremonial opening of Parliament on Monday, President Paula May Weeks said there is no room in both houses for partisan politics and called on parliamentarians to work together to service the needs of the population. Following the address, several parliamentarians weighed in on the president's advice.
I look forward to this new session. I look forward to a new session where both opposition and government work together, that we don't make excuses. We try everything we can to create good law, that we support each other. And I think if we do that, if we start from the position that the people of Trinidad and Tobago are the only focus, then I think we will be all right.
We also have to recognize as parliamentarians, though, is that the younger generation is looking at us. And so even though we have heightened passions, even though we are very, very involved in what's happening, we always have to bear that in mind. And bear in mind the fact that our younger population is looking to us to set examples.
It is very important and significant that we work together, particularly with the legislation that requires a 3/5 or 2/3 majority in order to achieve the legislative agenda.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Akela Pandey says a political party, the Patriotic Front, is not making the noises that you hear others are making because the party thinks working on the ground is important. TV6's political editor Joel Brown had a chat with her and brings us up to date.
During the reception in the rotunda at the Red House after the ceremonial opening of the 12th Parliament, TV6 News sought an update from Akela Pandey about her political party, the Patriotic Front, which was established in 2020.
The party is there, it's working, not making the noises that you may hear others making, because we think working on the ground is important, and that's what matters, reaching out to people, doing what we can with whatever power that we have, which is not political power at this time, but I'm sure when we get there, there'll be much more that we can do.
In 2020, 3 weeks after Ms. Pandey announced that the Patriotic Front would contest the general election, she had described as being sudden Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's announcement on July 3rd of 2020 that the election would be held on August 10th of that year. Ms. Pandey had then stated that she did not think that her party could have successfully campaigned the 41 constituencies in 3 weeks and said the Patriotic Front would be going back to the political drawing board. And now,
a good, sustainable party is not formed overnight, and you have to get good people, and you simply don't come together just for power. You have to come together for the right reasons. You have to be on the same page, and finding the right people and good people who want to serve country. And if that takes time, I'm in no rush.
But we posed a follow-up question in light of one point Ms. Pandey made, given that there are other political parties which have announced their intention to challenge the PNM and the UNC in upcoming national elections. They include the Progressive Empowerment Party, the PEP, led by Philip Alexander, the Progressive Democratic Patriots, the PDP, led by Tobago House of Assembly Deputy Chief Secretary Watson Duke, and the newly formed National Transformation Alliance, led by former Police Commissioner Gary Griffith. Somehow, from what you said, I gleaned that maybe your party would not be opposed to speaking with other parties once you're on the same page.
Absolutely. I think not just speaking with other parties, but anybody who's willing. There are lots of wonderful charitable groups out there, NGOs, people doing really good things. It doesn't necessarily have to be politicians. You just need the right people there to do the right thing, to put country before self. And it isn't rocket science, but finding the right people isn't always the easy thing. But I'm glad with the team that we have, and we will keep building.
June Brown, TV6 News.
St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister extends condolences on the passing of Queen Elizabeth II.
St. Kitts and Nevis' Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew extended condolences on behalf of the government and people on the passing of the country's head of state, Queen Elizabeth II. The 96-year-old monarch who passed away at Balmoral Castle in Scotland was head of state for 8 independent countries in the Caribbean that are members of the Commonwealth of Nations. Prime Minister Drew expressed condolences, noting the Queen's legacy of service.
It is with profound sadness that we, the government and people of St. Kitts and Nevis, mourn the passing and celebrate the life, service, and legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. We offer prayers for her family and loved ones, and for all those who knew and loved her across the realms, the Commonwealth, and throughout the world. Her reign, marked by resilience, dignity, duty, quiet faith, and piety, has been and will continue to be an example for all of us. May her soul rest in eternal peace as reflection on her service continues to be remembered.
Queen Elizabeth II visited St. Kitts and Nevis in 1966 when still a colony, and again in 1985 as an independent country. At that time, she declared open the Brimstone Hill Fortress National Park. Prime Minister Drew was among leaders of the 56 Commonwealth countries across Africa, the Caribbean, Europe, and the Pacific, expressing condolences following the passing of Queen Elizabeth II. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
Tourism officials in St. Kitts and Nevis call for innovation. Glenn Bart of SKN Newsline reports.
Innovating in the tourism space seems to be a focal area of tourism authorities on St. Kitts. Ellison Tommy Thompson, the CEO of the St. Kitts Tourism Authority, believes generating growth now requires greater inclusion for authentic experiences for visitors at all levels of the tourism product. Thompson was responding to an SKN Newsline query regarding the nature of tourism innovation, of which the officials spoke.
In terms of innovation, there are 2 aspects of that. One is to make sure that the product offerings in St. Kitts are new, fresh, and innovative. So we're having internal discussions about what we as the Tourism Authority and the Ministry of Tourism can work on in conjunction with the private sector to make that happen. When in the minister's speech, she talked about the authentic Kittitian experience. I think this is where we want to concentrate on how we can put together a program or an experience where that comes to life. And that also brings in the aspect of community-based tourism, where we're able then to get the community involved in what we're doing. It's not for, the idea is for us to generate new experiences, but also to make sure that the wealth from tourism is generated through the economy and to the more rural areas in terms of that. When we look at the new advertising campaign, we're incorporating a lot of the Kittitian element in terms of the beauty, the topography of St. Kitts. But what we're also doing is not only just the ad, but we're also putting together social content where we've got Kittitians telling their story. So the ad brings you to our website where you can get a deeper experience, where the story of St. Kitts and what's available in St. Kitts is told by Kittitians. And we think what we put together is very powerful it draws you in to make you want to learn more about what's going on in the destination.
Meanwhile, tourism officials have been conducting exit surveys to gauge the level of satisfaction among visitors. Lindbergh reporting for SK Newsline.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardsHardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.